There's something undeniably captivating about Halloween night. The flicker of jack-o'-lanterns, the feel of crisp autumn air against your skin, and the thrill of eerie mysteries waiting to be uncovered. But this year, I decided to do something different, something that would change the way I looked at Halloween forever. I had heard whispers about a place called the Forgotten Halloween Town, a secluded area hidden deep in the woods, where no one dared to visit. It was rumored to be cursed, a town that celebrated Halloween in ways no one could imagine, and once you found it, you couldn't leave. It sounded like just another urban legend, one of those stories kids tell to scare each other around a campfire. But there was something about it that hooked me, the idea of a forgotten town that celebrated Halloween all year round. It was too intriguing to resist. So, I packed my bag, grabbed a flashlight, and set off into the woods, eager to uncover whatever secrets this town held. The woods were thick, the trees towering above like skeletal fingers reaching into the night sky. I had followed a map I found online, one that seemed hastily drawn by someone desperate to leave a warning. The path was overgrown as if it hadn't been used in decades. As I ventured deeper, the air grew colder, and the wind carried an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves beneath my boots. For hours, I walked, second-guessing myself, wondering if this was all just some elaborate prank. But then, in the distance, I saw it, a faint glow, like the light of a lantern, guiding me towards something unseen. My heart raced as I followed the glow, the trees parting like curtains to reveal the entrance to the town. There it was, an old, forgotten village, hidden away from the world. The houses were ancient, their windows boarded up and roofs sagging under the weight of time. Dust clung to everything, as though the town had been frozen in a moment long ago. And yet, in the center of it all, a huge bonfire blazed. Surrounding the fire were figures, dark, silent shapes that stood completely still, watching the flames dance in the night. I felt a chill creep up my spine, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I approached the nearest house, its windows clouded with dirt. Peering inside, I saw something strange. Decorations, Halloween decorations, pumpkins, cobwebs, fake skeletons, all placed as though Halloween was still being celebrated here. But they weren't fresh. They were old, decayed, like the remnants of a party that had been forgotten for years. Then I heard it, a voice, soft but clear, calling my name. The voice was ethereal, echoing in the silence of the night. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned to see who had called me. The bonfire cast long, twisted shadows across the ground, distorting the figures standing around it. They remained motionless, their faces hidden in the darkness, watching. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into something I couldn't comprehend, something ancient and powerful. Swallowing my fear, I took a step forward, then another, moving closer to the source of the voice. Each step felt heavier, the air growing colder with every breath. As I neared the center of the town, the voice grew louder, more insistent, calling my name with an eerie familiarity. My heart raced as I turned around, panic flooding my veins. The eerie silence enveloped me. No one was there, only the figures lingering by the fire, their gazes fixed and unyielding. But there it was, that voice, unmistakably echoing from inside one of the nearby houses. Summoning every shred of bravery, I advanced toward the house at the town's edge, the source of that disembodied whisper. As I drew near, the door creaked open, and an icy chill scurried down my spine. The darkness inside was dense, oppressive, swallowing light as my flashlight struggled to pierce the gloom. With every flicker of the beam, I caught glimpses of the walls, alive with sinister etchings, jack-o'-lanterns grinning, bats flitting, skulls leering. "Come closer," the voice beckoned once more, silky and sinister. I froze in place, my pulse hammering in my ears. There was nobody visible, yet the air was thick with an unsettling presence, as if unseen eyes were fixated upon me, urging me forward into the shadows. A frigid gust brushed my skin, and then I noticed it. A figure, hazy and flickering at the end of the corridor, its head twisted at an unnatural angle. Those eyes glimmered with an unsettling light, piercing the dark like twin lanterns of dread. My breath hitched, and instinct kicked in as I began to back away, a chill crawling up my throat. In that moment, something cold grazed my arm, a touch so icy it felt like the grip of death itself. I whirled around, heart pounding, but found myself utterly alone. My flashlight sputtered, failing just as the figure began to glide towards me, unnervingly graceful and slow, weightless as if defying the very laws of reality. The air thickened around me, as if the land itself conspired to keep me ensnared within its clutch. In a surge of alarm, I turned on my heel, sprinting towards the bonfire, desperate to escape. But as I stumbled closer, dread seized my heart. What I had taken for people around the fire were nothing more than mannequins, grotesquely adorned in tattered Halloween garb. Their faces were grotesque caricatures of joy, painted smiles twisted and unnatural. Dominating them all was a decaying pumpkin, malevolently grinning with jagged teeth, its eyes glowing with the same malicious light that had haunted me in the house. An unsettling realization washed over me. I was no longer free, and there was no escape from the nightmare that awaited. My legs felt heavy as lead, each heartbeat echoing in my ears like a war drum. I stumbled backward, panic surging through me as I desperately tried to flee. The wind shrieked through the desolate streets, and the sinister voice rang out again, more forceful this time, as if it were a command. Stay with us, forever. I had to escape. This cursed place was no sanctuary for the living. I sprinted toward the edge of town, but the buildings loomed behind me like giants, stretching endlessly and ensnaring me in a labyrinth of forsaken homes and dead ends. The town clung to me like a predator refusing to let its prey slip away. Just when despair threatened to overwhelm me, I spotted it, a break in the twisted trees, an escape route. Heart pounding, I surged forward, the voice clawing at my back, more frantic now, a mixture of urgency and fury. The icy wind lashed against my skin, biting me with an unbearable chill, but I pressed on, driven by raw instinct. Finally, I burst into the wilderness, the weight of the town lifted from my shoulders. When I dared to glance back, the town had vanished, erased from existence as if it had never been there. Yet the memory of that place, the cursed, forgotten Halloween town, etched itself into my mind, a shadow that would haunt me endlessly. It was as if the town had twisted its gnarled fingers around my soul, longing to pull me into its dark carnival of Halloween, to fashion me into a part of its eternal, grotesque celebration. And now, every Halloween I hear it, the voice whispering from the abyss, patiently waiting, forever calling me back. It all began as a dare, a seemingly innocent late-night challenge that spiraled into something far beyond my understanding. Growing up, I had always heard of the Bloody Mary legend. Like everyone else, I believed it was just a game, an urban myth designed to scare kids at sleepovers. But what I didn't realize was that sometimes legends are rooted in truth, and this truth, it was far more terrifying than any of us could have imagined. One rainy Friday night, a group of friends and I gathered at my house for a typical Halloween sleepover. We watched horror movies, devoured snacks, and shared ghost stories. Eventually, someone mentioned Bloody Mary, and an uneasy silence fell over the room. It was a ritual we had all heard of, but none of us had ever dared to try, at least not for real. The legend was deceptively simple. Stand in front of a mirror, light a candle, and chant her name 3 times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. According to the stories, she would appear in the mirror, either to show you your future or to claim your life. As soon as the idea was brought up, an unspoken challenge hung in the air. I could feel it, everyone waiting for someone else to take the plunge. I laughed it off, pretending not to care, but deep down, curiosity and a sliver of fear gnawed at me. Could an old legend like this really be true? Eventually, I succumbed to the pressure. The room buzzed with nervous excitement as I grabbed a small candle, lit it, and made my way towards the bathroom. I didn't want to admit it, but my hands were shaking. The bathroom mirror reflected the dim candlelight, casting eerie shadows that danced around the room. My friends crowded outside the door, their nervous giggles barely audible. I closed the door behind me, their muffled whispers fading into an oppressive silence. The air felt thick, almost suffocating as I stood before the mirror. "Okay," I whispered to myself, trying to shake off the growing unease. "It's just a stupid game." Taking a deep breath, I stared into the mirror. "Bloody Mary," I whispered. Nothing happened. My reflection stared back, unchanging. I called her name again, louder this time, feeling a bit foolish. "Bloody Mary." Still nothing. The candle flickered, casting strange shapes on the walls. I rolled my eyes at my own superstition, ready to dismiss the whole thing. But I had one more chant to go. "Bloody Mary." The words had barely left my lips when the temperature in the room plummeted. I could see my breath misting in the mirror, my heartbeat thunderous in my ears. The candle's flame danced wildly as if caught in an unseen gust. My reflection seemed to shimmer, but when I blinked, everything appeared normal again. Then, something moved. Not in the room, but within the mirror itself. A dark shadow twisted in the corner of my reflection, something lurking just beyond the edge of the glass. My throat tightened. I was frozen, unable to move, as a figure began to take shape behind me. At first I could hardly discern her features. She was ghostly pale, with tangled, unkempt hair and deep-set eyes that seemed to absorb all light, resembling two dark abysses. Though she remained silent, her mere presence was suffocating. A scream bubbled up inside me, yet no sound escaped my lips. She advanced slowly, emerging from the shadows of the mirror, inching closer. In my panic, I stumbled back and dropped the candle, plunging the room into complete darkness. In that oppressive blackness, I heard a faint whisper, a voice that shattered the silence like broken glass. "Why did you call me?" I frantically clawed at the door, desperately searching for the handle. The voice echoed again, this time more forceful and filled with rage. "Why did you call me?" The door remained stubbornly shut. My heart raced, and my hands trembled as I struggled to open it. Suddenly, I felt a chilling grip on my shoulder, a hand so cold it felt like fire against my skin, constricting my breath. With a surge of determination, I finally managed to fling the door open and dashed out of the bathroom, slamming it shut behind me. My friends were chuckling, convinced I was merely trying to spook them. However, when they caught sight of my expression, their laughter faded, and their faces turned pale. They sensed that something was amiss. I chose to keep silent that evening, but I could feel her presence, Bloody Mary, watching me intently. Her essence seemed to hover, particularly around reflective surfaces. Each time I glanced into a mirror, I would catch fleeting glimpses of her, a shadow, a flicker, a reflection that didn't belong to me. She was there, biding her time. As the days passed, the situation escalated. Sleep eluded me as her voice echoed in the stillness of the night. Objects in my room began to shift inexplicably. Doors creaked open on their own, and every mirror I passed shimmered with her ominous image. In a desperate attempt to comprehend what was happening, I delved into research and uncovered the true tale of Bloody Mary. She was not merely a ghost. She was a vengeful spirit caught between realms. Those who summoned her would bear her mark, haunted until she chose to claim them. I tried every possible way to break the curse, even going so far as to shun mirrors for weeks, covering them up, but nothing worked. Her presence intensified, and her whispers grew more insistent. There was no escaping her grasp. She had chosen me. Then, one fateful night, I was jolted awake by the sound of shattering glass. The mirror in my room had fractured from within. I realized what was about to unfold. She was here, and this time, she wouldn't let me escape. As the shards of the mirror tumbled to the ground, I caught sight of her, Bloody Mary, standing in the fractured reflection, grinning with a sinister glee. And then everything faded to darkness. This was the Bloody Mary curse. Once you summon her, there's no way back. I never believed in ghost stories, let alone the idea that something as innocent as a mirror could be a gateway to something sinister. But everything changed when I moved into my new apartment. It was an old building, with creaky floors and strange noises at night. The kind of place that feels like it has a story of its own. Yet, I never expected to become part of that story. The apartment came fully furnished, and there was this old, ornate mirror hanging in the hallway. Its frame was carved with intricate patterns tarnished by age, yet it reflected light in an almost unnatural way. Every time I passed by, I felt like something was off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it was the faint, barely noticeable cold breeze that seemed to blow every time I was near it. Or perhaps it was the way my reflection seemed just a little too slow to follow my movements. Whatever it was, I dismissed it at first. Just my imagination, I thought. But things escalated quickly. One night I stayed up late working on a project. The apartment was quiet, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards. I got up to stretch and made my way down the hallway towards the bathroom. As I passed by the mirror, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I stopped, backing up to look at the reflection. At first glance, everything seemed normal, but then I saw it. A shadowy figure, faint but unmistakable, standing just behind me. It was barely visible, like a smudge on the glass, but it was there. I turned around quickly. Nothing. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned back to the mirror. The figure was gone. I shook my head, convincing myself it was a trick of the light or maybe I was just tired. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. Something was wrong with that mirror. The next few nights, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time I passed the mirror, I felt eyes on me. Once, I even thought I saw a flicker of movement when I was walking away. I started avoiding it, deliberately looking at the floor as I walked by. But avoiding it only seemed to make things worse. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, I came home to find the apartment unnaturally cold. The temperature had plummeted, and a thick, eerie fog seemed to cling to the air, almost as if it had followed me inside. Wrapping myself in a blanket, I tried to shake off the creeping chill. But then, I heard it. A faint whisper, barely audible, emanating from the hallway. It was like someone was speaking, but the words were too soft to discern. I stood frozen, straining to listen. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, drawing me towards the mirror. Terrified, I approached slowly, each step amplifying the eerie whispers. Standing before the mirror, I stared at my own reflection, which seemed warped, like I was peering into a twisted funhouse mirror. Suddenly, the whispering stopped. Without warning, my reflection smiled, a smile that wasn't mine. I stumbled back in horror, my heart hammering in my chest. My reflection no longer mimicked my movements. It stared straight at me with a sinister grin that sent chills down my spine. Then, slowly, it raised its hand and waved. Panicked, I turned and bolted, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop until I reached the living room, as far from that cursed mirror as possible. The rest of the night I huddled on the couch, paralyzed by fear, too terrified to venture near that hallway again. The next day I called a friend to come over. I couldn't bear to be alone in the apartment. When she arrived, I recounted the strange experiences I'd had with the mirror. She laughed it off at first, suggesting it was just stress or lack of sleep playing tricks on my mind. But then, as she passed by the mirror herself, she stopped dead in her tracks. "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I thought I saw something." "Behind me," she said, her voice shaky. She tried to laugh it off, but I saw the fear in her eyes. She had seen it too. That night, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't live with that thing in my home any longer. I covered the mirror with a sheet, hoping to trap whatever was inside. But the next morning, the sheet lay crumpled on the floor, and the mirror stood bare, reflecting the hallway ominously. Desperate, I delved into research, seeking any explanation. I stumbled upon an old article about a previous tenant who had lived in my apartment. He had died under mysterious circumstances, his body found in front of the mirror, eyes wide open in terror. He had been obsessed with the mirror, claiming it was cursed. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises, and after his death, the apartment remained empty for years. Determined to rid myself of the mirror, I pulled it off the wall and threw it into the trash outside. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. That night, as I lay in bed, the whispering returned. Louder, closer. My heart raced as I sat up and looked around. In the corner of my room, the shadowy figure from the mirror stood, watching me. It had followed me. Days have passed and sleep eludes me. The whispers are constant, and the figure inches closer each night. I realize now that it wasn't the mirror that was haunted. It was me. There's no escaping it. If you ever find an old mirror, think twice before bringing it into your home. Some reflections aren't just reflections. Some are doorways to something far darker, something inescapable. And once you've looked into the eyes of the ghost in the mirror, it will never stop looking back.